For self-improvement, crafts, and fitness games, go ahead and turn on YouTube and watch Jack.
Hey, it's Jack Jenkins here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am turning 30 years old in about a couple of months, so I figured, hey, the original idea of this channel, one of the first videos I ever did was talking about 26 things I learned at 26. Why not keep this going by doing 30 things I've learned by the time I hit 30? So that's what this video is. In no particular order, I'm going to be doing this in two parts just because it's going to be a long kind of rambling video and it makes it easier for me to edit. So the first thing I learned by the time I hit 30 is that you are not old. You know, when I was 21, when I was 22, I felt old. 23, I felt old. 25, I felt old. Now that I'm hitting 30, I feel pretty young again. And a lot of this is just because knowledge. I mean, there's a reason why Erik Erikson's stages of adulthood, it's 18 to 35. You know, during that range, you are kind of in a young adult mindset and you're just in that stage. You know, this is the stage when you're preparing for work. This is the stage where you're preparing for our family, getting married, all this stuff. All this stuff that you are doing now is still part of young adulthood. So if you feel old and you're younger than 35, don't, because you are not old. I don't even think you're old at 40 or 50 or 60 even. You know, you're still in like the mid-adult life stage during those periods. So if you feel old at 30, don't. You are still young. You have so much time and so much energy to do things. I know I do. The second thing I learned by the time I hit 30 was you are not going to be as successful as you thought, and that's okay. Growing up, you know, I grew up pretty smart kid. I got a lot of good grades in everything except for history. I got good grades in math, good grades in science, and let's be honest, when you're in school, those are the two main subjects people care about. English, nobody cares about. So I got so much smoke blown up my butthole about how great I am and how I'm going to accomplish so many things by the time I'm an adult. And to be honest, I kind of did accomplish some things. You know, I work a great job in education. I completed college. I've been married. I've done pretty well for my life. I started this YouTube channel. But at the end of the day, I thought I was going to be like a millionaire. I was going to invent some software that's going to change the world. I was going to start my company by then. You know, before this, I started Academy One. Before that, I had Sarai, both of which were failed startups. And, you know, I got so down on myself when I was watching that 26 things I learned at 26 because I felt like such a failure. But now I realize that, you know, you still have so much time. And, you know, so many people who are super successful, they sacrificed, yes, but a lot of them kind of started off on third base anyways, let's be real here. And besides, lots of people sacrifice and don't make it. For every success story, there's thousands of people who tried and have failed, and that's okay. Not everyone's going to be as successful as that. And then in some ways, it's kind of great because you don't have to worry about sacrificing all the time and energy it takes to run a company. You can hang out with your wife. You can go on adventures. You can live your life. And I'm not saying obviously I do pretty well for myself. You know, I live in the Midwest. I make a pretty good salary, you know. I own a property that I've, you know, what is it called? It's a townhouse, but still, I own property, in quotes property, like at 26. Like that's something that, granted, it's the Midwest. If you're listening to this and you're on a different country, it may be a lot harder, but honestly, I'm still proud of myself for being able to buy a place on my own with my wife, who was then my girlfriend. I've accomplished a lot in my life. I'm not as successful as I thought I would be, and that's okay. And you guys aren't going to be as successful as you thought you were going to be. Yes, people are going to say that you're a genius. You're going to do so many great things once you graduate high school. And if you don't accomplish it, it's okay. You can still continue on. And if you do work like a bad job, like a dead-end job, don't worry. You have so much time to go back to college or start a business on the side. You have so much time to do that, even if you're 30. The third thing I want to say that kind of relates to that is that you aren't going to achieve the goals that people in the past have achieved, and that's okay. A few years ago, I was talking to my dad who, had kids super young. I think it was just out of high school. He was still like a teenager when he had my older sister. But still, he was able to get a house, have 3 more kids by the time he was like 25. He was able to graduate from culinary school. My mom went to school for her associates. Like, they were able to afford a house by being a chef and being a respiratory therapist. Like, that's something that's not going to happen nowadays. If you are a chef at a company, you're not going to make the salary to buy a house. I mean, no offense, but like, my parents, if they were born today, they would have such a hard time struggling, because having 3, 4 kids at 25 in their 20s isn't possible nowadays. And that's okay. If you think about your accomplishments and you're like, my parents, they had a house at 20, 18, 19, 22, whatever age it is, and I can't buy a house now and I'm 35, understand that it's a completely different world than it was back then. Like it or not, we have so much more people than we have of houses. Back then they had a lot less people. The economy was so much greater in the 80s and 90s that it is today, that it's okay to understand that, hey, you haven't accomplished what they accomplished at that age. And if they talk about it, don't let it get you down. It's just something that it's a different perspective. A lot of people tend to not realize or look at the market once they buy their house. They don't realize how expensive housing is. I mean, when I was looking at buying a house from moving here in Illinois over to Las Vegas, it's a world of difference. You can still buy a house in the Midwest. Not that people want to live here. We're depleting people like crazy just because it's not that good of an area. What is there to do? Nothing. But you can still buy a house really cheap in Illinois. It's not as cheap as it used to be, and you wouldn't be able to do it when you're so young. Back then, they were able to buy a house with just an associate's degree and with just going through culinary school. Not today, and that's okay. Don't feel bad that you're not matching their goals. It's a different world. The fourth thing I learned by the time I hit 30 is staying healthy is something that you need to work at every single day. I am morbidly obese. I am 290 pounds. I fluctuate between in the 280s, 290s. At some points, I actually got up to 330, I think was the highest I've gotten. I've lost weight since then, but I continue to struggle to lose weight from that point. And that's one thing I wish I did, is I wish I learned to get into the habit of going to the gym every single day. Now, I am building the habits. I am a lot more healthier. I actually just recently got my blood work done, and I actually have, 20 points lower in the, whatever the top number is. Like, my blood pressure is so much better now than it was 2 years ago, just because I'm eating healthier. I'm working out more. My weight hasn't really changed. I guess I've lost like a few pounds, but it hasn't really changed since then. But just the health and like reducing my stress, getting better quality sleep, all these things have had such a great impact on my health. And I just needed to learn and get in the habit of things. Now I'm building out the habit of trying to get into the gym more and losing weight. I'm getting my ass kicked in cardio. Cardio is still just a pain in the ass for someone like me, someone nearing 300 pounds. But just the habit of staying healthy and keep going into the gym, building these healthy habits, eating fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. Having these habits now, building them when you were young, are going to pay dividends when you're older. And it's a lot harder to start now when you're in your late 20s. Because I'll be honest, I'm someone who stresses eat like crazy. And when you're in your 20s, you don't really have a stressful job. You're not really in a career path like you will be when you're late 20s. So that's just one thing I wish I've done, is just kept it going. And that's my advice for you, is to keep going on health. Health is one of the most important fields in your life. And it's something that I struggle with and wish I did and kept up going in my younger years. The fifth thing to go relate with that is that healthy food can be cooked delicious. Now, I grew up with kind of an advantage having my dad was a chef. He moved over to the IT part of the world. Like I mentioned previously, went to culinary school, was a chef, eventually moved forward. So he knew how to cook vegetables and make things delicious. My mother, on the other hand, could not cook for her life. She did pretty good, but she was very busy with 4 kids, doing all this stuff with work, so she didn't really have time to cook. You get your microwaved vegetables. That's as good as I got. I gotta go to work. And she was in school too. She's like, I gotta go to work. I gotta hop into school. We're busy. So that's one thing I learned, is that when you're older, is you can learn to cook vegetables and make them so good. Like recently I made broccoli. I would just heat up broccoli in the microwave, and I just always felt broccoli was okay. But I've learned now that I'm cooking and trying to experiment things, that you can cook broccoli in a pan, get it nice and crusted, then actually add some lemon juice to get the all acidity good, and add garlic salts, and add smoked paprika into it. It tastes amazing. You can make vegetables taste as good as a restaurant with healthy ingredients, and you can still use the cheap microwave food. It's actually fresher that way because they freeze flash it or whatever while it's still fresher than you can get it at the grocery. So you can get amazingly flavored, cheap, frozen vegetables and make them taste amazing, better than the main course, if you learn how to cook and if you know how to make healthy food. Great. That's one skill that I would highly recommend everyone in this video watching learn. And if you're in your early 20s, learn how to cook healthy food. Great. It'll make you taste great. It'll improve your cooking. Girls love that. If you're a single guy, girls want a guy who can cook them a nice meal. Do that. And then it will also improve your health and relate to that point I just made. So learn to cook healthy food. Great. Number 6 is that keeping up with friends can be a massive challenge with work. Keeping up with friends in your early 20s, you just go to a party and all your friends are there. You go to a bar, you can just make some random friends. When you're in your late 20s and pretty much everyone's married, everyone's starting to have children, if not already, between work, keeping up with friends is hard. I live 45 minutes from my oldest and best friend, and we barely see each other. We see each other maybe 3-4 months. And it's just because there's just so much to do with work, school, hanging out with a partner, vacations. It's just they want to have a kid, so that's going to complicate things further. Keeping up with friends becomes its own second job if you don't make them by doing some sort of class. That's one thing I would tell people, is understand that you have limited time in your later years, and to use your earlier years to keep up with friends, hang out with them more, go on more adventures. If you're just no, I'm a little tired, go, because you don't know what tired is until you're later and you're stuck at work. The 7th thing I learned is that you will learn to love yourself. And that's something I struggled with, being sad a lot. Like I've mentioned, I have Asperger's syndrome. That's one thing that's hard, is learning how to connect to people. And I struggled with it. I struggled with self-esteem and learning to like yourself. And I thought I would never, ever learn to like myself. And that's not true. It takes time and energy, and learning that you can do things throughout your life. For instance, I used to be extremely terrified of speaking in public. I was so scared of speaking out in public that for my speech class, they actually put me aside. Since I had an IEP, they had to make exemptions for me. So my exemption was I couldn't speak in front of the class. They literally pulled me away from the class and put me in front of just the teacher. And I would just do my speeches just in front of the teacher. And that's one thing I hated about myself. I hated how just bad I am socially, which that's what Asperger's basically is. You're bad at social communication. And I went from that to, speaking to meetings at work, speaking up at bigger meetings at work, to now going to a conference and speaking in front of 200 to 300 people. I've learned how to, learn to speak. I would never thought I would be sitting here in front of a camera speaking, because I was in speech classes. I could barely speak words. I still am not at the point where I want to be as far as fluency and, thinking ahead of while I'm speaking, but I've accomplished a lot. And that was one thing I hated about myself, is I feel like I'm socially terrible. And now I'm so good at it. I can talk to people, and I'm using me as an example, but I'm saying if you struggle with how you like yourself, learning to take on challenges in your younger years will pay dividends in your older years, and eventually you will love yourself. That's one thing I would say to everyone who struggles with depression and stuff. Depression is always going to be there. I still get sad, and I still have thoughts and stuff, but I've never thought I'd look in the mirror and be happy with a person who looks back. And I am, now that I'm in my older 20s, and it's because of the things I've done in my early 20s. Learn to take challenges, and understanding that these challenges will eventually lead you to liking who you are. And this is not permanent, There are days, I go oh God, if only I wasn't such a stupid, socially awkward, fat, ugly loser, I would be able to, be better at this meeting. But other days you just kill it. You just I was on demand. I was no, this is not how an API should be structured. You should be able to take my base 64 string and convert it to binary. That's getting too technical, but yeah, you'll be able to demand certain things from people, and you'll just feel so good about yourself. That's one thing I would tell. If you're having suicidal thoughts, if you're younger, I know I did. You won't like yourself. You may not like yourself even at this age, but continue to work and self-improve, and eventually you will love yourself during certain times. It's always going to be painful for you. That's never going to get easier, unfortunately. You're always going to have thoughts. If you suffer from depression or any of these mental disorders, you're always going to have problems. You're never going to be 100% quote-unquote normal. But you will learn to adapt, and you will learn to truly appreciate how much work you can put into yourself and see the results. Some people are lucky. Some people are born completely fine, and that's great for them. They'll have other struggles going on in their life. Some people may not be born atypical, they may be, or neurotypical, I forgot the terminology, but some people, and they may not be born with mental disorders, but they'll have some other problems that you won't have, that they have to work over. No one is born completely perfect. Even the rich kids are always sad. That's just one thing, is everyone struggles. Learning how to overcome your struggles and learning to adapt is what's going to get you to love yourself. Number 8 is skincare is very, very, very important. Before I started dating my girlfriend, I never used skincare. Now that I'm married, I use skincare all the time, and I actually feel like I look younger. I have like nice dewy skin now, like the splotches are gone. I have to say, like, I feel and look good. Just spending an extra 5 minutes getting ready each morning, putting on skincare makeup will make you feel better about yourself. I didn't believe the whole like, oh, women wear makeup just for themselves to make themselves feel good until I actually started doing it. You know, that's a misogynistic phrase nowadays, but that was true. I didn't believe that they did it. I thought they did it for male attention until I started doing it, and I'm like, damn, I feel good. I don't care what other people say. I'm fat and ugly, but with the skincare routine, I kind of feel pampered and good. Number 9 is what is beautiful will change as you get older, so don't worry about it. And this is twofold. When you're young, you focus on like, oh, I wanted such a beautiful, attractive wife or girlfriend to, please your mates. And now when you're in your late 20s, you don't actually care about any of that. You want someone who meets your goals. And one thing I've noticed is people get worried is like, oh, what if I lose attraction to my wife when she gets older? Or what if I lose attraction to, different things? That's why I need to marry someone younger or better or not marry at all. Like, don't worry about that, I find my wife more and more beautiful each day, even if she's older. And she's already like 12 years older than me anyways. There's so many. You can find a younger woman attractive. You'll find an older woman attractive. Whatever you like will change and evolve with you, and you'll appreciate things differently. Like when you're young, you're just like, ooh, I appreciate the body, but now you more appreciate the soul, the person, the ideology. Of course, you always appreciate the body. That doesn't change, but what you focus on changes as you get older. So don't worry about finding, someone's who you envision others would find attractive. Focus on who you are attracted to and understand that it will evolve as you get older for the better. Number 10, I'm trying to run through these a little quicker, is a college degree is very, very important. I am someone who never wanted to go to college. I skipped college. I did not go to college straight out of high school. I actually graduated from college last year at the age of 28. Now, that's big because I spent so many years of my job chasing jobs that would never hire me just because I don't have a college degree. Out in California or out in New York, you may not need a college degree, but here in the Midwest, you do. And honestly, college is not that bad. Yeah, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of effort, but you appreciate learning a lot more when you're older. It's an interesting time to like, oh, that's interesting, I didn't know that. It's just the price that kind of hurts when you're older. You're like, oh, this is my car each year. I can buy a new car each year, or I could go to college. But that's one thing, is college is very, very important. A lot of places just won't hire you without a college. They won't take you seriously. Even if you didn't go to college and you do go to a professional career, some places just won't pay as much as they would with someone with a college degree. That sucks, but that's just life. Number 11 is your intelligence does not matter as much as your work ethic. And what I mean by that is that there's so many smart people I see go through the door at my job, at younger positions, just starting off in help desk. This is a background. I started off as a, customer service rep. Then I moved over to the phones. And then I moved over to like the technical side of the phones, worked my way up to IT, went to school, got my degree in computer science, and now work as a software developer. I started all the way at the bottom as like, someone who's, you don't even look twice, now being pretty high up in the software development chain at my job. That's one thing. And then through that, I saw so many smart people just not get promoted, while I'm not as smart as a lot of these people are, and yet I kept getting promoted. One thing I noticed is that the work ethic just wasn't there. I'll give you a straight example. It's this guy at work, incredibly smart, so smart. But the issue is he did not like his job at all. So he would create the tickets for the IT system, but he wouldn't log it correctly. He would log it incorrectly. It would route it to someone else. This person would be like, hey, this does not belong to us. Route it back over to the IT help desk. And then we would have to pull the tickets and reorganize it, fill out the detail list, and route it to the correct team. And he's like, I don't want to really put the effort in because they never promoted me. They never promoted him right away, despite the fact that he was so intelligent. So he kind of gave up. And I know that sounds bad, but this dude was just so intelligent, so smart. But he did not have the work ethic to really finish and do things correctly. People would go to him and ask him for advice. People from actually a higher level would go to him, talk to him for my advice. He would know the exact answer and exactly what to do, but he would just never do it himself. It was the craziest thing. Like if someone would call the help desk, he would skip the phone call. And we would see it on the board, be like, Alan, you skipped the call. He's like, yeah, I don't feel like taking the phone call. It's like, dude. Eventually, he did get fired, but it's insane. And I wonder where this dude is now. Hopefully, he did cultivate. He was an older guy, maybe in his early 40s. So he was also kind of pissed that he never got promoted past the help desk. Is just because he didn't have the work ethic there. But there's just so many stories like that. So many people who are so incredibly smart just didn't want to work hard in providing things for the company. The best advice I can say, besides work hard at your job, is to find out what your boss is doing and see if you can take any ownership of those projects. That's one thing that helped me immensely, is that, for instance, there was a program that we used at the help desk that the boss was working on. Obviously, I didn't know how to program, so I kind of learned programming as I was working on this project. Eventually, he was like, here, you can take the whole thing on it because you were good at it. Eventually, that moved me away from the help desk. I was working on this program. People saw it. People were actually impressed with it. And then they actually moved me over to software development as a junior role while I was still in the beginning stages of college. Once I graduated, they moved me into an actual full-time software development role. And I would never have gotten that role. I would never have the opportunity to become a junior if it wasn't for my work ethic and just people being like, hey, he's not the smartest guy in the room, but he understands how to utilize the smartest guy in the room to help him with tasks, because the smartest guy in the room really did not want to do the work. I seriously hope that guy's off doing something good, because he's one of those people who are like, damn, he's so smart, he can make so much money, but he just refused to do a lot of work. He worked at the help desk. He still lives with his parents at 40. It's just a tragedy, man. And this guy was he graduated from college as a super high college in Illinois. He was one of the first people to work with VR systems in the 90s or 80s, early 2000s, I should say, not 80s, 90s. But yeah, in the early 2000s, he worked with the VR systems. And I'm just it's just incredible. He had such a great journey, but he just fell off hard. He just did not want to work ethic. I think he did have some mental issues, so take care of your mental health is vital. And also, taking care of your mental health will allow you to give you work ethic. Like I said, I am someone who is has on the Asperger's spectrum. I forgot what they call it again. Is it autism spectrum disorder instead of Asperger's? Whatever. But since I work hard, I feel like I can talk to people and speak their language normally. I could definitely be a huge dork, and we can all cuddle around and become dorks and stuff. But I also feel like I've learned enough skill to become sociable, and that was because of work ethic that I cultivated, just being born not the smartest, but wanting to be the smartest. Next is 12. Cleaning is an everyday thing, and you need to learn to love it. This one's kind of sucky just because I hate cleaning. I hate cleaning with such a passion. But you have to learn to love to clean because that is something you do every day. When you're younger, you can let things slide. You can not clean for months on end. You can let the apartment get stinky. No one would care. But when you're in your late 20s and someone goes into your apartment and you're like, dude, what the fuck? There's like dishes in the drawer. Everything's like dirty. You haven't cleaned up like socks on the floor from like 3 months ago. Like it looks like a disaster. You can live that life when you're in your early 20s, not in your late 20s. So learn to love to clean is one thing I would tell all you guys. Find out what you like to do while you are cleaning. Some people love turning on a podcast. That's what I like. Some people like listening to book on tapes or music. Whatever it is, learn to do that while cleaning. Some people get motivated from actually putting on YouTube videos of people cleaning. So, like, watch cleaning videos and be like, oh, I want to do that. I'm motivated to clean, but I cleaned. That's one thing I would say is important, is learning to love to clean, because you're going to spend every single day cleaning. Sure, you can put some things off every now and then, but laundry, you should probably do that laundry. You shouldn't let the dirty laundry sit there. So yeah, do some cleaning every day, man. Number 13 is it's not too late to do a career change in your late to mid 20s. I should say mid to late 20s, because that's what I did. Like I said before, I didn't even go to college till I was 24. I worked at the help desks, started off in customer service, moved to the IT help desk as a beginner, moved up all 3 levels there, moved over to IT, then I went to school, graduated college, and now I'm a software developer. It's never too late. Never too late. For years, I worked shitty jobs. I was in pest control. I did various warehouses. I worked at so many restaurants because that's what I originally wanted to do. I wanted to be a chef like my dad. Instead, I'm in kind of IT like my dad. Guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but yeah, all I wanted to do originally was to open my own restaurant as like a cheeseburger restaurant. At some point, I still want to. But yeah, learning to be okay with career change. If you're young and you still don't have your career ready, don't fret. Just understand what steps it takes, whether it's college, whether it's certifications, whether it's quitting your job and starting your own business. Understand that it's not too late to do it in your mid to late 20s. Some people are lucky. They get a head start. They started an app business at like 19. Good for them. They probably have rich parents. You don't. You're poor. You have to take the steps it takes to get to where you want to be. And I understand that path because I was that kid. I grew up in Aurora, which isn't a poor neighborhood. It's not rich, but it sucks when you're young seeing all these accomplishments on the news and realizing that that's never going to be you. Learn to be okay with that. Number 14 is that being single will provide you with some of the best years of your life. And I will say that while I wasn't single for so long, being single was so much fun. You had the ultimate freedom. And I was still living at home with my parents. Like, I was able to go out. I was able to date girls, meet different people. I ventured all across the state and out of the state to try and chase girls. I had a crazy time in my time as single. Don't get me wrong. I'd much rather prefer to be married to my wife than be single. And if you don't, you probably married the wrong person, to be honest. But seriously, you have some amazing times when you're single. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's depressing at times. But understand that freedom you have is something that you'll never get back unless you had to get a divorce. So enjoy your 20s. Enjoy being single. Just go out, go on adventures, go on dates. Just live your life when you're in your early 20s. Don't sit at home being sad that you're single. Number 15th is, like I said, being married is so much better. Like I said, while I do say, hey, you're going to spend times being depressed, being single, go out and have an adventure. Like, there's still times where that's cool. Girls don't want me. In that case, that does suck. And then in that case, understand that being married, once it happens to you, is amazing. You know, you go on so many adventures. You always have someone to go on adventures with. If you're like my wife, who prefers going on adventures more than me, and who will drag my ass out of the computer chair and hang out. Being married is an amazing time. I think there's so much negativity around it. With all these podcasts, and it's true. If you married the wrong person, your life is a living hell. I know people who are divorced who spent tens of thousands of dollars, a ton of energy wasted on a marriage, and that's not really right? Because they've learned so much from their marriage that they don't feel like it's wasted. So if a podcast says they married, they're divorced, it wasted all this time, energy, and money. No, it wasn't, because they learned a lesson. Hopefully they did. But once you do marry the right person, life becomes so incredible. You always have your best friend there. Yes, there are times where you fight. Yes, there are times when you bicker. But they're not the majority of times if it's a healthy relationship. Those are just little spurts here and there. The vast majority of time is great. So that was 15 things I've learned before I'm 30. My voice is starting to go out, so I'm probably going to record the rest tomorrow. And then after that, I'll edit it. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button for the channel. Follow me on Twitter at TrueJackJenk. Visit my website at jack-jenkins.com. Lastly, visit my website, jack-jenkins.com. I just said that, so visit jack-jenkins.com. And together, we can improve. I keep messing up my catchphrase. It's, we can improve together. And that's really what I want to get out of this series. What I learned at 30. It's a bunch of rambling, but what I want to get at is that learning just doesn't stop. Life doesn't just stop. Nothing stops when you're in your early to mid to late 20s. It just begins. You're not even done being a young adult, according to Eric Erickson. You're not even a young adult until 35. So you got so much time ahead. Don't worry, young Padawan. Things are just starting.